Hello and welcome, everyone. My name is Dan Lloyd. I'm the founder and president of an organization called Minority Millennials, and I'm excited to be the moderator for today's discussion and conversation for the 27th Annual Competitive Edge Conference. And since 1993, this Competitive Edge Conference has linked the New York region's small businesses, including minority and women-owned business enterprises, disadvantaged businesses, enterprises, and locally business-based enterprises here in New York and across the nation. The topic of today's discussion is shifting the culture of entrepreneurship. Our discussion is going to focus on the new generation of entrepreneurs and how shift changes affect NW, LDBE, and SDVOB programs and impact success. We are joined and have the honor to have four great panelists. We have Kiana Beckles, the CEO of Leverage Assessments, Perna Carell, Principal of K&A Consulting Engineering, Erica Keller, CEO of Briser Builders, and Dinesha P. Gross, the Deputy Commissioner of New York City Department of Small Business Services. We're going to start off today by having each panelist introduce themselves. So, Kiana, can you please just share with everyone who you are and the background that you serve with today's discussion?
Sure. My name is Kiana Beckles. I'm an entrepreneur, so my business, Leverage Assessments, is first generation. I started the business in 2016, and we service the public and private side. On the public side, we support civil service test administration, as well as pre-employment psychological assessments for public safety. We've supported NYPD, HRA, DCAS, and the city of Schenectady here in New York State. And I also have another organization, the Black Government Contracting Club.
Awesome. And it's great. I'm looking forward to this conversation. Thank you, Kiana, again for joining. And second, we have Perna. Can you introduce yourself and your business for today's discussion?
Hi, my name is Perna Carell. I'm the president and CEO of K&A Engineering Consulting. We also started in 2016. We are a New York-based engineering firm. We're a New York State certified engineering firm as well. We serve power utility industry in project management, construction management, engineering, technology, all different aspects of utility business. We have multiple offices across the country: New York, Connecticut, Maine, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Chicago, St. Louis, and Colorado. We're one of the fastest growing companies, and we're really proud of that. So that's about me and our firm.
Thank you, Perna, and congratulations too on the fast growth. And we are excited and looking forward to your contribution to today's discussion. Next, we have Erica Keller. Erica, can you just talk to the audience a bit about who you are and your business as well?
Greetings. My name is Erica Keller. I am the chairperson CEO of Briser Builders Corp., which is a second generation general contracting firm. And in 2016, I started my own firm called Briser Builders Development, and we focus on the development of affordable housing with faith-based organizations in New York City metropolitan area. We currently have approximately 700 units that have been completed or are currently under construction in New York City, and another 1,261 units in the development pipeline. We most recently, in 2019, started to expand outside of the New York City metropolitan area, and we are focusing on the New England as well as the Mid-Atlantic region, where we won 2 RFPs in Massachusetts, have purchased properties in Rhode Island and Maine, and are currently working with a faith-based organization to develop affordable housing in Maryland.
Excellent, Erica. That's amazing. I really love that cross-section between solving an affordable housing issue and as well as partnering with faith-based organizations and institutions, because that's desperately needed. And it's an innovative approach too as well. That's the first time I think I've heard of that. And lastly but not least, we have Dinesha P. Gross, who's going to speak about her role with the New York City Department of Small Business Services. So welcome, Dinesha.
Thank you so much, Dan. Pleasure to be here with all of you. Kiana, I've seen your name around so much in recent months, and Erica, We've known each other since my days in working for city council members in Central Brooklyn, with all of your great work there. And Perna, happy to meet you too. My name is Dinah Shell Gross. I work for the city's Department of Small Business Services. So we're part of the Economic Development Toolkit of the City of New York, and our focus is on small businesses, helping New Yorkers launch, operate, grow new businesses, also prepare for emergencies and be resilient in the face of emergencies like Hurricane Ida recently. But my division at SBS's focus is the MWBE program. So we help to recruit businesses to the MWBE program, assess their eligibility initially and for continuing in the program. We also develop vendor services and capacity building programs, including financing assistance programs to help MWBE succeed in city contracting. Then we help connect city agencies with MWBEs by operating an online directory of certified firms and pulling lists of MWBEs for specific solicitations. So at the end of FY21, there were 10,665 certified MWBEs in our pool. And, we succeed when they succeed. So I'm here happy to answer questions today and be part of the conversation.
Thank you, Dinah Shell. And I must say, I know that the city, specifically the Department of Small Business Services that you're the Deputy Commissioner for, has been doing a really great job in recent years of making sure that they're reaching their procurement goals. And I know that the state is actually mirroring what you all have been accomplishing in a city. So it's an honor to have you as a panelist today for this conversation. So to kick off with the first question, actually we want to get right to it. And we want to tackle a myth. And the myth being is that many people seem to believe that there is no benefit to becoming NWBE or BE certified. There's a lack of trust. They feel there's no transparency with the process. The process takes too long. They may feel that even if they get certified, are they actually going to be rewarded any contracts? So Perna, do you believe it is truly worth being certified? And how can one better ensure their businesses to win contracts?
Yeah, so nothing is easy, right? You have to work hard for everything you do, especially in the business. So competitive landscape, and you gotta be really good at what you bring to the table, because nobody's going to hand out stuff to you. So MWBE certification or diverse certification is definitely helpful. I'm not sure about it takes too long because I guess we got fortunate enough to get it kind of quick. But it does help. But I always suggest people to, if they really want to be successful in any entrepreneurship journey that they begin, really focus on getting better at what you do. And networking is very important. It's all about network. People want to do business with who they know. You build a trust. You start small. You get to know the primes and other bigger firms. Initially win their trust by doing a better job in the beginning. Once they know what you bring to the table, then having diversity certification like MWB certification definitely helps, because there is big initiative to promote diverse companies. So if you happen to have diverse certification while you're really good at what you bring to the table, then you're going to be successful. Just having certification and assuming the work is going to come to you, I don't know if that's practical at all, in my opinion. I always suggest young entrepreneurs or anybody who is starting, focus on getting better at what you do and network. Really go meet with people, take on small tasks that you're good at, really earn trust. And then the word goes out and you grow that way. And then diversity certification is definitely going to help you. If you have diversity certification, then that big initiative is going to put you on the spotlight. So that's my opinion about that.
Yeah, I mean, Perna, you make a great point. I've heard that so many times, that even if it's a developer or a governmental entity, they want to do business with those who they know and then also who they trust. This is still going to be a financial contract. So they want to know that if they contract you, that they can that you can deliver on what you're doing, right? And that another point to you is to network. And so that these entrepreneurs, we have to be not only prepared, but we also have to be prepared and packaged. How are we packaging our value with regards to the industries that we're looking to get these contracts. So just for clarity, just because you're NWBE certified or WBE certified does not mean that you're just going to get a contract. You have to do the groundwork and the legwork to make sure that you're in the room with individuals that make these decisions. And you can also then make sure that they're accountable to have economic inclusion and diversity when they're awarding these contracts. So great point, Perna. You got to be prepared, and you also got to package your value to make sure you're ready for opportunities. So just to kick off to the second question, Kiana, aside from construction, because it does seem a lot in the past that construction takes up a lot of the industries that get these contracts. What are the best business sectors to pursue an NWBE or a WBE or any type of certification in this space? What would you say is the best industry or the sectors to do this in?
So, and I'll preface that many of my responses, even though we speak about minority as a generality, many of my responses, especially when I speak about statistics, will reference Black businesses. But in terms of the future, certainly New York State is getting ready for wind energy, is getting ready for sustainable energy. So green technology and wind energy are certainly the future. We just, at the Black Government Contracting Club, completed a micro accelerator program which focused on opportunities that'll be coming down through the infrastructure bill. The American Jobs Plan will have a ton of money that's coming down from the federal, state, and city levels for all kinds of different business opportunities, no matter what business you're in. I know that a lot of times our programming focuses on, starting businesses that are that can support us in the future. But that is a long-term game. We also have to think about creating opportunities for the businesses that exist. And while a lot of our programming focuses on construction, because a lot of the city's spend is in the construction space, many Black-owned businesses, about something like 50% of Black-owned businesses, are actually more in the professional services space. So we also have to match opportunities with businesses that are existing so that we can target the populations that we want to be doing business with, to reciprocate our dollar within our community.
Love it. That's a great point. And with regards to professional services, one thing I hear, especially in emerging offshore wind industries, that could be something, and correct me if I'm wrong, say that you're a Black-owned or minority-owned or women-owned legal firm, that is an opportunity for you to get a contract to help the legal services in that emerging industry, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you think about, wind energy and opportunity like that, it's not that you have to be building wind turbines in order to be able to get a contract. There are going to be all kinds of needs, right, that project will require. Everything from, transporting materials out to the actual location, to your point, supporting any of the contractors with legal services. For any given project, it's like a little city. Whatever they need, they're going to be ready to buy.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a great point. And it's really helpful to understand the supply chain process, which will be a further discussion. But it trickles down, and we have to know, so again, that we can hold everyone accountable to ensuring that procurement inclusion is reaching the goals, if not going above and beyond those goals, which takes us to the next question. And I want to direct this to Ms. Dinah Shell. How can we ensure that New York State and the city and surrounding regions, even Long Island, are accountable for their 20 to 30% NWBE procurement goals? How can we really make sure that, again, not only are we reaching these goals, but that we're going above and beyond these goals moving forward?
And I think when you're talking about holding, any governmental entity accountable, you think about what are the accountability structures in that system of government. I mean, they tend to be elections, right? Here in the city of New York and at the state level. and they're not the most direct or immediate accountability structures, but we have a transition in city government coming up now. It's a great time to be talking to that incoming administration as a community of business owners, MWBEs, organizing and being sure that you have a voice to influence what those priorities are going to be. I think the other thing to understand is that you can't hold any entity accountable to responsibilities like that it doesn't have, and so you need to understand the structure in the law, um, and what they're actually accountable for. So in the city of New York, the goals for the various entities, the ethnicities and genders in our MWBE program flow from our law. And then the administration has expressed a larger goal of 30% utilization in aggregate. But the city has a contract specific goal setting process. So for every single contract the city releases, they are looking at our pool of MWBEs, our pool of certified firms, who is in that firm that has the experience, the financial capacity, the expertise to perform on those contracts. And then they are setting goals for that procurement based on availability. And so this goes back to the first question you asked: is it worth it to get certified? If these firms are not in the pool, the city is not even going to set a 20 or 30% goal on the contract for that procurement. It wouldn't make sense for an agency that's charged on delivering on a public need to set a contract for utilization if we don't have those firms available in the pool. And so we need to be looking for the firms that are out there to help them understand the value of certification. There are still businesses, some minority owned businesses, women owned businesses, that feel like, I don't want to be judged for my ethnicity. I don't want to be recruited because of my gender. I want to know I made it on my own. And so they will choose not to certify, and which means that we can't count them when we're counting who's performing toward those goals. So we need firms in the program so that we're aware of who's interested, who's available to produce those contract-based goals that the agencies and the primes actually are held accountable to. So there are larger goals in the law, larger goals for the administration, but for the city, for sure, the specific goals are at the contract level, and it behooves the MWBE to understand that, and then also to be in the game, to be submitting a proposal that is appropriately priced, is competitive, and is responsive to what the solicitation has asked for, because it's really only the MWBEs who are participating in that way who can raise the red flag if there is an inequity in consideration. And that's what the elected officials, the agency, need to hear in order to work to resolve those inequities if they exist in the process.
Wow. I love it because, it takes me to 2 points that we spoke about earlier. And really, quite frankly, the topic of today's conversation, right, is shifting the culture of entrepreneurship. And why I say that is we want to encourage and empower the next generation, the new generation, these millennials and Gen Z, and the millennials and Gen Z of color, to really tap into these programs. But with this shift in the culture of entrepreneurship, at the same time, we're seeing a shift of political power. We're seeing a shift of political will, especially in the city, where the younger generation is really tapping in and becoming activated in the decisions that the political power and the political will has in play. And this is something that I always talk about with my organization, is that there's a parallel between being civically engaged and your own professional success, because it always intertwines with each other. And this your point is so powerful, because our voices, it shouldn't just be last year or because of COVID or this social and racial unrest, and those that marched last year. Take that same energy in the marches and make sure that your voices are being heard in the upcoming elections and the new mayoral election for the city or across the country, quite honestly, so that in economic development there's true diversity, and that we can really hold everyone accountable and really shift not only the culture of entrepreneurship, but the culture of political power and political will. So that's a powerful point, Dinah Shell, and I'm really optimistic. I think that this next generation is really understanding that, and we're going to see a huge shift in the next year, and now in the definitely the next 5 to 10 years. So I want to jump to Erica because this is something that can be quite complicated. I don't think a lot of existing NWBE and WBE certified business owners are know of this process, and I know very sure that a lot of my colleagues and the millennials and Gen Z really don't understand how important it is to the process of bonding and to have the ability to show that you are bonded. So Erica, can you talk a bit about what is bonding exactly in this procurement space?
So bonding actually is a process by which there is an attempt to guarantee delivery. And I think that was a language that you used earlier when you were speaking with Pura. So basically, the bonding process is an insurance policy in which the general contractor, the prime contractor, or the contractor has an insurance policy or a backstop to say if they are unable to deliver, there is a process in place in order to ensure that the project can continue, or there will be funds or a resolution to whatever the issue that has occurred that has brought some damage or some stoppage to the project. And it technically is, you would go to what they call a surety company. There's a broker involved in which you are, as the contractor, posting a certain amount of money in paper to backstop any issues that may happen on the project. And, you know, most government contracts do require this backstop through bonding. Most recently, I think the government contracts are also considering a letter of credit, which is where the contractor would be required to provide a cash collateral of a certain percentage of the entire contract, again, as a backstop to ensure that there are funds available to deal with any unforeseen circumstances or anything that may challenge the progress or the completion of the project. Unfortunately, I have to say that the bonding process has been one of the impediments to ensuring that there was inclusion and equity and fairness of minority and other disadvantaged organizations, because it does require this financial capacity or financial backstop that as a new entity or a disadvantaged entity, or as we know, because of the historical implications in this country, minority and other women business enterprises are unable to produce. And therefore, it has been prohibitive of these organizations being able to take advantage of the opportunities that have been availed through these government contracts because they have been unable to bond them. So I think in thinking about, you know, the change in administration and new legislation and how each of these agencies now want to make a commitment beyond what has happened in the past, or really create an equitable path forward, there has to be a more creative and innovative way to backstop projects to ensure that there is some financial wherewithal to remedy any issue that may occur that doesn't necessarily put that solely on the contractor, who may be, again, a new entity, a new organization that doesn't have that financial wherewithal. I know that recently the city has had a bonding readiness program where they've talked about what are the steps that you need to put in place in order to make yourself financially, what's the word that I want to say, you know, attractive to the surety companies and the banks in order to provide these bonds. But again, I think on a legislative level, there needs to be some forward thinking about how to ensure that there's an equitable path forward, and that bonding and letters of credit do not become prohibitive to minority and women business enterprise participation.
Yeah, and again, it could definitely be daunting, right? you go through the process of getting certified, which can take anywhere from 8 months to 2 to 3 years. And then you are, actively networking, like Perna said, and you build relationships, you build trust, and then you finally get an opportunity to potentially, become a contractor and deliver the value that you're saying that you're going to be able to. And then all of a sudden, this idea of bonding hits you. And so I think, just to kind of piggyback on that question, would be, again, for you, Erica, is there a certain amount of contract that you have to have bonding for? Is it larger contracts, or is it whatever certification contract that you get or procure? Do you have to have bonding readiness?
So it's really dependent upon the agency, the government agency, and their requirement. So, if you are, a general contractor working for the New York City Department of Housing Preservation and Development, most likely you're going to have to post a bond to cover that entire development. So if you're saying, let's say you're doing a 100-unit building on non-prevailing wage, and the cost of the construction is approximately $25 million, you have to bond that project, right? Conversely, if you're doing a smaller project for maybe the New York City Housing Authority, and it's a $250,000 job, and you are doing some specific trade, you still may, as a contractor, be required to bond that work that you're going to be doing. So it depends on the government agency, what their requirement is, and then it could be a range in terms of the size of the contract.
Understood. Thank you for the insight. And I would just say, lastly on that, is that we do have a new lieutenant governor with a former state senator, Brian Benjamin. I actually had the opportunity to speak with him recently at the New York State Economic Development Conference. And that was one thing that was brought up. We speak upon legislation change to come up with some innovation approach. And I would call on everyone watching this to really continue to use your voice and platform and rally around our new lieutenant governor, who is eager and has the background and the vision for innovation. And I think this is something that we can really bring to the table for our new lieutenant governor, and he can see the value of why this is necessary for ensuring inclusion and diversity, especially with the next generation that we're focusing on. So thank you so much, Erica.
You're welcome. Thank you.
For the next few questions, I definitely want to just open it up to the panel, and I'll just kind of throw the question out there. And we can just really have an open discussion, because this is all based upon the 4 big questions that we just asked. So the next question is, I want to ask, honestly, how inclusive do we see the government procurement process becoming? Do we really believe that there's going to be change? I'm optimistic, but I'm really interested to hear everyone's perspective on how inclusive is our government really going to become when it comes to this.
I mean, I can answer that question in reference to my short experiences in starting my organization in 2016. And we've done, most of our work has primarily been with New York City Department of Housing, Preservation and Development. I have seen change in reference to real actionable items where they are working to make the opportunities more inclusive, particularly for developers. So there was, an MWBE class that was offered for new developers that started, I believe, in 2016. And it's been an annual series. They have, they started about 5 years ago, a matchmaking where MWBEs could go to presentations made by developers and general contractors for upcoming projects so that they could learn about those opportunities. And most recently, they have mandated that 25% of all, well, I would say in 2017, I think 25% of all subsidy coming from the agency must be designated for minority and women business enterprises, which was huge. And most recently, they have stated that any RFPs that are responded to must have a minority women business enterprise or nonprofit participant that has at least 25% ownership in that structure.
Great point. Is any of the other panelists want to just chime in?
Yeah, I can probably go next. I agree with Erica. I mean, our company, we don't do a lot of government work. We do investor-owned utilities, and we do work with couple state-owned utilities as well. We have, initially, 2016, 2017. It was kind of nice to do thing in our space, not so much push to really engage diverse companies. But in last, I would say, 12 to 24 months, it's like day and night. It's a big push in a very positive way. Every contract that comes out, there's a question asked. There's a diverse inclusion. They specifically spell that out on RFP, scope of work, what they're looking to do.
Yeah.
So it's very encouraging. So like I said, as you build your credibility and resumes in a professional services space as well, not just construction, there is definitely a big push and initiative to engage diverse companies. So it's very encouraging to see how things have changed recently.
I would chime in. I think 2022, the New York City's MWBE program will celebrate 30 years. This is very mature policy at this point. This policy was developed by Mayor Dinkins, and investment in the policy, commitment to the policy, I would say, has waxed and waned, over the course of the transitions in city leadership over time. But at this point, I think we have a very informed and committed and increasingly savvy set of internal advocates for the program. There's a lot of transparency in New York City government. There's an open data law. There is public information about every payment the city makes, every contract the city solicits, every contract the city enters into. A great deal of transparency. But you can, dump all that data on the internet. But is it accessible? It's only accessible if you have folks who are willing to talk about those numbers, to answer questions, and that requires a demand from the field, from the community of MWBEs themselves. So I'm actually really heartened by panels like this one. I think, you plan to have a substantive discussion today that's not, on a surface level, and that matters because it's that pressure from within by informed advocates who are willing to dig into the numbers and interrogate the data that drives increasing inclusion. And I think what we're seeing is a combination of demand from informed businesses within the community and a set of public servants who are in public service because they want to advance policies like this. This is why my team exists, and we're a team of mission-driven individuals who take a great deal of pride in being part of the redistribution that this policy helps to create. So with those two factors working together, I am hopeful for greater inclusiveness moving forward.
And I'll say that I can see it. I can see two different sides to the story. On the one hand, building the MWBE program into the city charter, right, it certainly intends to move us forward. Recent legislation has MWBE procurements. It has agencies look to Black, Hispanic, and Native American firms first as a method of trying to address the disparity between the different ethnic groups within the minority programs. And certainly I am hopeful about that type of legislation, but on the back end, there is the implementation of it, which can still be prohibitive enough to prevent participation or prevent adequate participation. Certainly for me, it took about 3 months to complete our MWBE certification with the city. And then it took 2 years to complete our MWBE certification with the state. And as long as there is still a mountain of paperwork for the participation of small businesses or under-resourced or under-financed businesses in order for us to be able to participate, just as a matter of resource, it will still continue to be cost prohibitive.
Yeah, I have to give you some positive affirmation, Kiana, because I actually just heard from our new commissioner of New York State, Jerome Duval, that they're going to be working on expediting the state process.
Yes, they've
So
been saying that for some time. Yes.
listen. I trust them. I believe in them. I think it's going to happen. So we should be hearing some good news before this year is over. And I think that we have some great leaders right now. I will say that from top to bottom, from bottom up, we have some great advocates and activists and experts like everyone here on this panel that are going to ensure accountability. But I do think on the flip side, we have elected officials and commissioners and deputy commissioners that are actually activating and making sure that the implementation is getting done. So I think we're in a great year. We're in a unique moment. We have to take advantage of it. If we don't take advantage of it, I think we're going to lose the opportunity for true generational wealth to go into our hands. So I think that is important on both levels. So just to jump into the next question, because I think that was great responses from all of our panelists, is what advice do you have for suppliers that do not have the adequate capital to cover upfront costs while awaiting reimbursement funding? This is similar to the bonding aspect, but please, anyone feel free to tackle this.
I can speak about this because it's a program that we developed to support city MWBEs, and it has been very effective. So we will provide, the City of New York works with CDFI lenders to provide upfront capital to MWBEs performing on city contracts. So these are loans capped at a 3% interest rate. During the state declared coronavirus pandemic, we were able to reduce the interest rate on these loans to 0% interest rate, but that is now expired. It's still back. It's now back to the 3% interest rate. But say you've got to, staff up, or you have to, acquire equipment or materials. You need to lease a space to produce at a different pace or capacity in order to perform on a city contract. The city will lend you up to $1 million. And what we try to do is get the agency to assign the payments under the contract to the CDFI lender, so that as you begin to get paid for your deliverables on the contract, the loan is also getting paid back. And so the idea is you will end the contract with the profits that you built into your bid for the contract, but also with that loan paid back, and you'll be in an improved position, credit position, so that you're able to qualify for additional financing in the future. You've also established a relationship with the CDFI who wants to continue to work with you and as your company grows. So we encourage firms to explore our upfront capital program. You can do it at the point of bidding on the contract. It doesn't have to be after you've won. They can go through all of the underwriting process before you've got the contract in hand, so that you're able to demonstrate your financial responsibility to perform on the contract for that agency.
Listen, I appreciate the contract financing programs, but for some of the contract financing programs, you're going to need to hire 2 or 3 people just to do the paperwork associated with the program. And when you speak to some of the CDFIs, they'll say the same thing. And in addition to that, sometimes the agencies, because you need agencies to participate and do some of the paperwork too, and they move slow, they drag their feet on it. So I've certainly, and this is, obviously this is just my perspective, and there are other folks who will have different experiences. But between me and the folks in our group, a lot of those programs, particularly the contract financing programs, have been difficult to access. And when we speak to our folks, particularly at the Black Government Contracting Club, we tell everybody to do business in the public and the private sector, because it is difficult to fund the upfront costs that are required in order to get a government contract. While the government contracting business is certainly sustainable and can be a sustainable part of your strategy with your business, you still will need operational cash flow in order to invest in that side, and that you can get that operational cash flow from the private sector.
Yeah, I mean, I could probably chime in a little bit. I mean, that's definitely a big pain point for any startups, is the cash, and a lot of people don't understand that because that's the blood of the business, right? And it's not. I mean, one thing I learned in this journey is cash, man. I mean, I lost sleep over this almost even till today. You know, like how can we make a payroll, right? It's easy to see from outside, but when you're really in the seat, it's hard. So that's definitely a tough one. I mean, I agree with Kiana, because these government contracts, especially when you're a sub, there's a pay. I mean, hopefully this doesn't exist anymore. There's pay when pay, and then there's an invoicing review. It just takes forever to get paid, right? And this business can die not having enough cash. So what I've learned in a hard way is negotiate the payment term really hard. If you can get down payment from the primes, try to get that, okay? Because you're a small contractor. You don't have enough cash in the bank to feed your people. To yourself, too. It's like, hey, can you pay me 10%, 15% up front? I'll deliver. I already have a product ready to go. And then just manage your cash flow in a positive way. Don't assume they're going to pay on time. Seriously, that's the reality out there. And these banks will not trust you when you're small. These banks will not give you money. They'll ask for $1 million, net worth, while you don't even have $50,000 net worth, right? That's the reality out there. My suggestion is negotiate contract as hard as you can to payment term that they will pay you up front so that you can stay afloat. That's number one. Number two, don't go to big banks. These big banks, they work like a machine. They don't think. You go to small community banks. Build a relationship with them. Build a trust. Hey, I have a real contract. I'm going to deliver. Trust me. Sometimes they're human beings. They will believe you, and they'll give you a small loan. And once you build the trust, they become your partner. So I mean, seriously, that was an eye-opening journey for me, at least. And then there are some, sometimes you gotta invest in high risk lenders too. There are high risk lenders out there, because if you have a contract, you may pay high interest to get the contract to deliver. Maybe next contract you build the credit enough to go for low interest loans. But initially, we've done that. We went to some high interest lenders. They took the risk and they gave us money to really survive in the beginning. To a point now, we pay very low interest to some of the big banks. So yeah, this is a tough part, and you got to manage it really hard. Contract negotiation, building local community bank relationship, and then continue to build your credit worthy.
And I would just chime in to say again that this is another area where I think it's important to have conversation with our elected officials and to have conversation around legislation and policy, because I think that there is a way for government contracts to provide mobilization, because the issue is about mobilization funds, right? And that the government isn't willing to take the risk in reference to the mobilization, so they put it back around through these different sort of CDI, loans and such. And so it's really about the government, if they're making this commitment to organizations that they know that have been historically disenfranchised from an economic perspective, that there needs to be some trust there in that relationship. And I think there is a way to backstop that mobilization funding that would come to a new contractor who's coming to the government, where you may have them signing a personal guarantee or such, but that the government is saying, we're not expecting you to have that capital because you're a new organization or you're a disadvantaged organization. So we are going to give you the money so that you can start the work and do the work, but there is maybe some process that needs to put in place to guarantee that it's going to be used effectively and properly to move the job forward. So I think, again, it's about thinking innovatively from a government perspective as to how do you do actionable items to support the commitment that you're saying you have towards these organizations.
Hey Dan, can I chime in real quick? So I don't know I don't know. New York State has that rule, but some of the states have that rule. They don't allow Prime to sign a contract that has pay when pay term. That pay when pay term can kill the small businesses. Basically, what primes do is they wait for however month they have to wait to get paid on these government contracts, and then these subs will have to wait another few months after that, where it's just unfair for these small firms. We're already struggling on the cash, and then these big firms, they're sitting on big cash, and they don't pay just because it's allowed. But certain states do not allow pay when pay term. I think New York State probably still allows that, and that was the biggest problem. That's still the biggest problem. Something to think about.
Yeah, Perna, you make a great point. That was actually going to be a piggyback question I had of mine. I also want to ask Kiana a question. Well, really, the entire panel is, how do you feel about subcontracting in the beginning? Is that something that newer firms should really just kind of focus on? And when they're looking at contracts, is specifically subcontracting?
Well, I'll start, and I think that everybody has a different strategy. Some firms, and depending on your industry or your business type, or depending on the relationships that you have, you might leverage relationships with prime vendors in order to start out utilizing subcontracting. I started out utilizing discretionary purchases, so I have not used subcontracting. The accountability mechanisms are different. If you have a contract directly with the government, then whatever accountability mechanisms we speak about here in terms of politicians, in terms of reporting, or in terms of who you can call if you don't get paid or what have you, are applied to you. Whereas as a subcontractor, you're doing business with that private business. And so you don't necessarily have the same protections that you would if you were doing business directly with the government. And I'll sort of yield on that because, again, my experience is not as a subcontractor, but I understand that some folks do use that as their primary strategy starting out. I think that you can do either one, depending on what relationships you have, depending on what type of contract or what type of purchase you're working on, and how the agency that you're working with wants to do that purchase. So there are a lot of different factors, and I think that one of the challenges about like government contracting as a whole is that we have a tendency to think about it as sort of a monolith, but it's not at all. There are, however many different types of contracts. Those contracts differ from the city, state, and federal, local level. Within the city, they differ from agency to agency. The people who have the purchasing power and the mechanisms at each agency can differ. So it really behooves folks who are trying to do business with the city to understand the particular agency that they're trying to do business with, and what contract or what acquisition type best fits that particular arrangement.
Love it. Thank you so much, Kiana. And with that said, you always hear when you're having a good time, you're having fun, or in this case, I think when you're learning something, because this has been a powerful and a very wise conversation, time goes fast. So we do want to wrap up, and we want to have each panelist please share final words. And I would just add that with your final words, just kind of give us an insight on how do you feel the younger generation will actually be engaged, or do you think that they're going to take advantage of these opportunities with inclusion when it comes to NWBE certification? So please share final words, and just keep that kind of last question. It's to my heart, again, as being the founder of Minority Millennials and a millennial myself, just include that in your final words if possible. So please, we'll start off with Perner, as you were the first panelist.
Okay. My final word is, entrepreneurship journey is always exciting if that's something you always wanted to do. Now is the time, in my opinion, especially for diverse, business owners, because of the renewable initiative that's happening nationally and globally. There's a lot of opportunities out there. Diversity, diversity and inclusion is becoming real. I really believe in that. It's a really positive, future there. So I strongly encourage people, if you are interested in entrepreneurship journey, it is not going to be easy. Just be prepared. But once you get into that journey, you'll learn a lot. Find a mentor. They'll definitely help you walk through the problems and situations, stuff like that. This is the time. So I say, take advantage of it. Work hard, and the sky's the limit.
Thank you, Perna. Kiana, please share your final words and what do you feel about business moving forward?
Okay. Well, I am an entrepreneur, and I still am a part of the younger generation. Me and the folks that have come together to pursue government contracts certainly are coming to get them. The Black Government Contracting Club, it is our goal to increase city, state, and federal spend from the 1% that represents what Black-owned businesses get now to 15%. Our group is primarily owned and operated by entrepreneurs, and we are very interested in doing business with the government. And we pursue those avenues, using the strategies to combat challenges that have plagued Black vendors for years. So, and it's not easy. There's nothing easy about it. And it's a long game. And hopefully y'all will still be seeing me when I'm no longer part of the younger generation. In fact, I know that that's the case because not only because of the speed at which government moves, but because there's a journey. And for the folks that put these programs in place who are no longer here, we know that my generation has to continue forth those efforts, and that we continue forth those efforts primarily for the generation that comes behind us.
Love it. Wise words, powerful words. Thank you so much, Kiana. And next, I just want to ask Erica, can you share your final words in closing?
So I would say it was very flattering to be invited to be part of this younger generation conversation, although I don't fall into that category any longer. So I will say to the future generations that I feel really the most important thing in thinking about what your future is going to be and how you're going to contribute to the world is to really figure out what you love and what you are talented at and what you want to do. And most likely that can be a business, right? And that can be something that you are able to sustain yourself and live off of and contribute and make the place a better, make this world a better place. So I would really encourage young people to think about what they enjoy, what they love, to look at that as a possibility for entrepreneurship, to think about where the world is going and to be conscious of all of the new trends that are happening and to look to those industries and see their interest in that. I do believe that we are moving towards being a more inclusive and equitable country. And I would, again, encourage young people to continue the advocacy to ensure that we are able to really effectuate and one day be an equal society. And so, again, I thank you for the opportunity to have this conversation. And I just encourage young people to be headstrong and know that there is a positive future ahead.
Thank you so much, Erica. And I always say we can't buy wisdom. So today we got it from someone that has the expertise and experience. So thank you so much for sharing your insight with everyone today. And last but certainly not least, I want to have Ms. Dinah Gross. Please share your final words in closing.
Thank you again so much for this opportunity. Absolutely. One of the things that I've been most excited to see come out of the uprisings that followed George Floyd's killing last year are some of the elected officials who have, or some of the young people who've chosen to pursue elected office and actually gained office. Erica, you're doing work in Maryland now, and I come from Maryland, and there's a new mayor in Baltimore, I believe. Oh, yeah. When I saw this young man, I was like, is he even 25?
He's like 15. No,
he's so young, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm so excited to see young people pursuing government service. And we've got a city council winner in Bed-Stuy, a young man in his 20s, and more folks who are going to be coming into the city council, not content with being discontent, but choosing to figure out how to get control of the levers of power, right? How to move the politics in service of the causes and the communities that they care about. And so one thing I want to tell that community is being in government and being a public servant is a great way to make those contributions, but doing the business, doing the work that you have a passion for, developing expertise, and then choosing to partner with government is another way to have that impact, because government does not function independently. When you see something in the news, there's a policy discussion or there's a new need, the mechanism that is closest to government's fingertips to influence that is a partnership with a private organization, nonprofit in some cases, a business in other cases. Okay, those partnerships make government nimble. They make government able to respond. And so you can pursue the thing that you are great at in the private sector and work with government as a vendor through the procurement process to deliver on public needs. And I want to see young people doing that. I see young people pursuing certifications. I had some conversations this week with a young woman who founded her business when she was in high school. She actually registered her business, and then she very intentionally pursued internships during her undergraduate experience, gaining experience, and now she's pursuing MWBE certification because she has some subcontract opportunities. So I think young people are, they are moving and shaking. They're achieving great things, and they will achieve great things in this realm as well. And I mean, I'm ready for them.
Love it. Thank you, Donna and Shal. I got to give a shout out to Mayor Brandon Scott over there in Baltimore, definitely doing his thing and being a great example for the next generation. So in closing, I'll just say that, the minority is becoming the new majority across Long Island, across New York State, and quite frankly, across the nation. And I always say that I love America. I love my country. And if we want things to stay as they are, things are going to have to change. And the next generation is not just going to sit around and say that things are changing. We're going to make sure that they are, especially Gen Z. Millennials have a little bit of respect. Gen Z has no respect. They're not going to sit around and wait and play games. So I'm optimistic. I love to see what's happening. Thank you all the panelists, for this insightful discussion. And with the closing, everyone, I hope this has been extremely informative, and have a blessed rest of the day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.